All right, everybody, before we jump into our story at FareHarbor, first want to talk a little bit about what is FareHarbor and why is the tour and activities industry just so difficult in startup land? Why are people at Phocuswright referring to the space as the startup graveyard? At FareHarbor, we think of travel as three things: transportation, lodging, and activities. FareHarbor powers the activities. What does it mean? We're a reservation and business management platform for tour and activity companies. Every single one of our clients uses our software every single day to manage their entire business. The first thing they do when they show up at work is they log into FareHarbor, and the last thing they do before they leave is log out of FareHarbor. We're going to take a quick look at hotels in comparison to tour and activities. Here we've got a hotel with a set number of beds and rooms. These beds can be rented out a certain number of days or by different size parties. But it's reasonable to assume that unless there's a major renovation at this hotel, it's unlikely that the number of beds will change. Now let's take a quick look at an activity company. This is actually a FareHarbor client. This client has river rafting, canoes, ATVs, and bicycles. Like the hotel, they can be rented out in different durations, but those durations could be a half hour, an hour, a half day, a full day, a week, a month. It goes on. And unlike hotels, they could also be rented out by user or by vessel. Let's take a closer look at just what this activity company has to deal with. So not only do we have duration, but we also have transportation. The tour provider might have to get those customers to and from their hotel or up the river. They also have to schedule guides. Some of this inventory could be used across different tours. FareHarbor was built to help tour operators better data model their businesses so that they can maximize their inventory. So how did we start? My brother, who's on the screen with me, and I ran our first client's business. This is Don Germain, the owner of North Shore Catamaran. The two of us were the managers and reservationists for North Shore Catamaran in Haleiwa, Hawaii for over a year. We answered nearly 10,000 phone calls at North Shore Catamaran. And we also built our business at the same time. And we learned by doing everything manually. What looks like a sleek and sexy interface was in fact two brothers doing everything for our account. And I mean everything. Confirmation emails were actually copy-pasted templates from the two of us. And somehow we agreed to send the client a 5 a.m. manifest automatically. The two of us would alternate actually waking up and copy-pasting in Excel and sending that manifest over to the Germains. And while we were doing that, we realized that the tour and activity industry doesn't have an easy button. This isn't an industry that's going to progress through mass market emails. And so we agreed to Dwift, do whatever it takes to help our clients come online. At the beginning, we roughed it so that we could forge our own path. This isn't an abnormal photo from our first year. This was, in fact, my bed. I like to tell people that it was the couch because it sounds a little bit more civilized, but the couch was just too short for me. So I slept on the floor for a whole year while we got going. Our first sales office embodied that same Dwift culture. We worked out of an office space in a basement with absolutely no windows. The nearest facilities were across the street. Demos were done from beanbags on the floor. Our first support office wasn't too different as well. In Denver, we used a local retailer's supply and showroom as a support office. Support calls also taken from the floor due to the lack of seating. And at every turn, we had to make a decision. Should we hire more people to help our clients grow their business? Or should we move into a Class A office space with perks? As you can see from the photo, we almost always chose to hire more people. This is what an average day looked like in our Denver office just 3 years ago. People sitting on top of each other. But they did it because they understood how much our clients needed our product to run their business, how critical we were to their every day. Our sales office grew, but it wasn't too different from a culture standpoint. Our first sales call booths were built out of Home Depot products. We had foam and cardboard. And if you were lucky enough, you might land the coveted single demo spot just below our only perk, the cup of ramen noodle. And all of this culminated when another software company decided to shut their doors on the eve of 4th of July, 2016. 90% of our office sacrificed their 4th of July weekend to help those Zerv clients get online. All told, we manually typed in over 50,000 reservations in a 3-day period. This photo of people sleeping in the office is a little bit crazy, but we actually had a good number of people not leave the office for a 6-day span where they had their significant others bring them clothes. And what's that brought us to? Today, we're now the largest software provider in the world, working with over 5,000 plus tour operators that are powering more than 50,000 activities. And we're nearing nearly 200 people who Dwift daily. So why do we care? Why do we care so much about the software and our clients? We care because we understand if we can help our clients maximize their available inventory, we have an opportunity to help increase the size of the tour and activity market. And at the end of the day, that's really important because we can put more smiles on faces as people get to try out that experience of a lifetime: snorkeling, scuba diving, zip lining, or whale watching.
All right, thank you, Lawrence. Awesome, thank you. Okay, our next speaker has a plan to create a big business by rethinking, by rethinking how we should shop and book for flights and maybe even make some money in the process. Oliver Dlouhy of Kiwi.com.
Thank you. So hello everyone. My name is Oliver Dlouhy, and I'm founder and CEO of Kiwi.com. Do you know Kiwi.com? Who knows? Raise your hand. Okay, so quite a few people. So for those who didn't raise their hand, I will just explain what we are actually doing. So we are a travel technology company and an online travel agent at the same time. And our main product and the differentiator is so-called virtual interlining, which we have invented around 6 years ago. So what is virtual interlining? Virtual interlining is actually connecting flights of carriers which do not officially cooperate with each other, which do not interline with each other. So this is what we do, and we are able, for example, to combine a low-cost carrier for a short-haul feeder flight with a full-service carrier for transatlantic flight, and then, again, a low-cost carrier for a last-mile short-haul flight to the final destination. We are able to combine low-cost with low-cost, low-cost with full-service, and full-service with full-service carriers, so all the possible combinations. How do I move forward? Yeah. All the combinations are covered by Kiwi.com guarantee. That means that if the first flight gets delayed and customer misses the connecting one, we cover it. We book the passenger to the next available flight to the final destination, and we pay it from our own money. This is how it works. This is our model. So we gather the data from the carriers, from the airlines, from GDSs, from actually more than 450 different sources. Then we process it in our local database and distribute the itineraries using our distribution network. So what is our added value? Why we exist and what are we good for? So first of all, we are good for the customers. With the virtual interlining, we can provide the customers with cheaper and more convenient connections. We are also good for the meta search and OTAs, which are our important partners, which we use for distribution. So we are bringing them richer content and, of course, additional revenue. And at the same time, we are good for the airlines because we help them expand their network because we are basically giving them the opportunity to sell even the offline routes or offline destinations. And again, we bring them additional revenue. So how do we distribute? Of course, we have our own website and mobile app, Kiwi.com, which accounts for around 15% or 15 to 20% of our revenue. Then we are using meta-search partners like Momondo, Kayak, Skyscanner, and of course, other OTAs, online travel agents, other websites who have travel traffic. Anybody can become our partner and distribute our content. So how do we make money? So we are marking up the flights we are selling. We add up between 10 to 15%, and that's how we cover the Kiwi.com guarantee, our operations, and the profit. And at the same time, we are receiving incentives from GDSs, global distribution systems, and the airlines. So currently, we expect this year to gross around $700 million with a revenue of 100 million. The next year, we want to double up. We have 1,400 employees all around the world. We are based in Brno, Czech Republic, but we have around 8 or 9 offices all around the world. And we are processing 8,000 bookings every single day. To this date, we have only raised $1.5 million, and the company therefore needs to be profitable because other than that, we couldn't afford so many employees. In the future, we expect to grow using these three channels. We want to boost B2B distribution. Currently, our main business model is B2B2C, so meta-search companies, user makes a search, and then it's redirected to Kiwi.com to finish the booking. So we are, over the past few months, focusing on B2B distribution to other online travel agents, to airlines themselves, to travel management companies, and we are also tackling corporate travel. Also, we can grow by improving the content. We are using machine learning to improve our content. We have quite sophisticated cache control, and we are closing more and more partnerships with global distribution systems and airlines and ticketing partners who help us improve our content as well. And last but not least, we are also planning to start an airline. In the long to middle term, it actually makes sense to start operating some routes ourselves. The reason is that currently we already see that on some routes, our passengers account for 40 to 50% of the whole aircraft. So actually, if the company will only double up, we will be selling out full planes. And that would be the point when it would actually make sense to lease our aircraft and operate them, which will give us another unfair advantage because that's actually another unique content. So I think that's it. So thank you for your attention, and thank you.
Great. A future airline, Kiwi.com.
Yeah, Kiwi.com airline.
Our next speaker is on a mission to transform budget accommodation across India. Please welcome the founder and CEO of Oyo Rooms, Ritesh Agarwal.
Good job.
Huh?
Nice job.
Thank you. All right. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm very thankful to Phocuswright for giving me an opportunity to speak here. As you all know, this is a huge podium and Phocuswright among the largest travel conferences around. All right, so today we are going to be speaking about startup stories. Our startup story has been a young one, 3.5 years now, but has had two very critical components. The first one is about how hospitality is seen in a completely different manner. We call ourselves India's largest hospitality company. So just for our discussion today, we will call it the new kind of a hospitality model. The second one is about India. That is where we've used this model and solved this problem. And hence, we're going to be talking about these two things. Whenever we talk about a model or a market, we speak about the size of the opportunity. So let's look at that. India is effectively where China was 10 years ago. 1.6 billion domestic travel visits last year, 2 billion projected this year, which means India is not only large, it's growing faster than China was 10 years ago, which means 10 years from now, India is not only going to be large, is going to be larger than what China is today, which all of us know is relatively very, very large. So that's a large opportunity. Whenever this size of travel happens, it leads to significant amount of hotels and accommodations. Now that's a huge market. Let's think about what do these hotels look like. Very exciting indeed. This is how hotels look like in India. Not very exciting, right? There's a real problem that exists there. A lot of these hotels are broken, do not have good quality infrastructure, and so on. Generally, as entrepreneurs, it's our job to find solutions whenever we find problems. We could have gone out and said, hey, you know what, the infrastructure does not exist, so let's just make a booking website. That's something that investors probably like. But the job of entrepreneurs is finding problems and saying that we will go out and solve this problem regardless of it being capital intensive or not. That's the route we chose. We've raised a little bit of capital to get there. I'd highly recommend any entrepreneur who finds a problem to actually feel that if they need to solve it and they need to raise capital, it is completely fine if they can go back and give significant ROI to their shareholders, which of course we aspire to do. This is how many hotels like this that exist. There are 4 million rooms like this that exist across the country. Imagine if you had coffee shops all around the town which served bad coffee and had bad ambience. The choice of going to that coffee shop will be a compromise, not a choice. Our mission is just to change that into a choice. So this is what we do to hotels. We partner these kind of small hotels, turn them around, and partner them with exclusive inventory, brand, and technology. There's a bunch of communication out there where people consider us not to do complete hotels, part hotels, and so on. I want to use this podium to share that OYO only does partnerships with full inventory models. We shared an annual report a few months back, wherein we shared 90% of our revenue comes from full inventory models already. Speaking about which, just to give you some more context, OYO operates in the economy space. There's OYO Townhouse in the mid-market space. In the economy space, we are the only players that exist just because of the core capabilities that we've built over time. Now remember, the plumbing of this beautiful model that I spoke as a new kind of a hospitality model is not as easy as it sounds. It sounds like a nice, cool model to happen, but it involves significant amount of capability creation. There are 4 of them. The first, being able to bring 10,000 branded rooms every month, probably the fastest in APAC. Converting hotels' net promoter scores from negative to 55% on an average. Being able to turn them around in 3 to 14 days, probably the fastest in this segment. And delivering occupancy rates from 30% to 75% plus for these asset owners. These are all very important investments that we are able to ensure that our hotel partners get the most value from us than anywhere else. How are we able to do it? It's because of 2 very important philosophies. The first is, of course, great technologies, along with first principle-based product experiences. Very similar to how you think about an Amazon, which just doesn't sell the product, also takes the hard work of delivering the end-mile experience. I'll give you some initial glimpse of it. Anyone else who's interested to talk about it more, I'm here at Phocuswright 3 days. The first one is we have an Orbis app, which ensures that we can sign, lease, and do the entire experience of a hotel literally on the mobile phone. The second one is our audit and training app. This ensures that our captains and general managers can audit and train their people at the hotel very, very seamlessly. The third one is transformation. The way we convert these hotels is a mobile-powered interior design system, which enables hotels to be converted really, really fast. If you've constructed a home, you know that just converting the house is a huge decision-making process. Every time the interior designer calls you for a decision, you're wasting time. That's what our mobile phone saves. And of course, our seamless mobile product. I know I was asked not to do sales, but I'll still do. That is, if you open our app, it's probably one of the faster apps across the world. It's a one-click experience to make a hotel booking, very similar to your Amazon's e-commerce product buying service. We are probably the only hospitality company with 97% direct-to-brand demand. So with that, a lot of people have had questions about our profitability. Very happy to share that we operate at 17% net margins. 20% that you see here is the gross, 17% net margins, net of discounts and incentives. With this, whenever you create great experiences, imagine those coffee shops becoming Starbucks. you're able to get a lot of new use cases, and we're able to get game nights, party nights, and so on for customers to come in and stay with us. And not only us, recently a report by Kalagato showed that Oyo, despite its niche focus of hospitality only, probably brings as many hotel booking room nights as India's two largest OTAs combined, showcasing that very similar to how you think about airlines in India. India's largest airline is valued 3 times of the largest OTA because India is a products-driven market. Whoever creates great product experiences will be significantly more valuable. In comparison to think of a US, where the largest airline company is probably still valued a little lesser than the most valuable OTA in the country. With this, I'd like to share something which is in our last comments. We are still a very humble young company, less than 1% market share, have a huge opportunity of growing and building the market. We will continue building in that direction. We will go out and scale our mid-market segment, go after new geographies, but in all of this, we will remember one thing. 5 years, 10 years, and 15 years from now, no matter what model we use, our customers will like 3 things: convenience, location, and price. And these are the 3 things we are never going to forget, regardless of the model that we use on top. With that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to us.
Better? Thank you, Ritesh. So, you guys have each got kind of very different stories, especially around funding. So, Lawrence, I want to ask you first. So, you haven't raised any money. What's up with that? Why?
Yeah,
why not?
I think for us, we've taken friends and family. At one point, I ran my Amex up to about $250,000 and had the full-on night sweats that you see in the show Silicon Valley. But at the beginning, if we had fundraised, it would have been for an idea that we truly didn't understand. We didn't know what we were getting ourselves into. I think we're pretty lucky to have gotten this far without it. But I'll never say never. A goal of ours at FareHarbor is to continually grow our market share. And if there's an opportunity out there to find a partner to help us get to that next level.
But there was this article in the Denver Post, I think 3 or 4 weeks ago maybe. And
Inbounds? We've spoken to everybody. And,
but it was
why
true
not?
that you basically have said thanks but no thanks to 25 venture capital.
We've talked to a lot of people, and the reason we've said no thank you is when we look at our market on a domestic basis, there's really no need for us to find additional capital. We can do it all on our own. And as we start to look at the international market, maybe it'll make sense, but I think I heard an interesting thing from a founder pretty recently. He said, why sell part of your company if you don't need to? And that's sort of the same boat we're in.
So kind of Ritesh, on the flip side, you've raised a little bit of capital, right? Upwards of, was it 450 million? And over a series of over 3 years. Why so much? It's because of the capital-intensive nature of building the standards out across all these properties?
Yeah, so I think I agree with what Lawrence just said, which is about you raise capital only if you need to. We're a business which definitely is a little bit capital intensive. It's not an online only business. We have to go out and fulfill the experience. We have to go out and ensure these properties are beautifully made and so on. So that's one reason why we raised some capital. The other reason of raising capital was also to continue to make sure that we are willing to make long-term bets as and when we want to. We as a company have always taken fairly long-term stances, which when you look at a quarterly level, it sounds crazy. But when you look at it from a 5-year or 3-year level, it'll probably look exciting.
So, but in your case, you're giving up some of your control of your destiny. I mean, this is one of the things that's been really important to you, but have you had to give something up for that?
Yes, no, you have to. I think the way we think about investments is it should always be a 1 + 1 = 11, which means if you give something up, it should only be for the greater good, for creating significantly more value than you would have if you had not given that part away. So, clearly the mission is more important than the value creation. And in the value creation, it's important to make sure that you create significantly more value with raising capital versus not raising capital if you choose to.
So, Oliver, you're going to self-fund the next airline? Is that Is that how it's going to work?
Well, yeah, I think so. So we raised 1.5 million in total, and honestly, we raised this amount because we were young and inexperienced, and at the same time because we were in the Czech Republic 6 years ago. So the access to capital was quite difficult back then. And we actually sold 60% of the company for 1.5 million. But at the same time, given the fact that we don't have access to money, it actually taught us lots of discipline and made us being. We had to be really profitable from almost the beginning, right? And thanks to the fact we managed to keep the costs very low, and the margin and the profits are growing all the time. So to answer your question, yes, I believe that in 1 or 2 years we'll be able to self-fund a new airline.
So often in this conversation about startups and raising capital, it's more of a one-sided conversation, right? What is the investor looking for? How can I get this money from this VC firm or that? But I want to flip that around. Like so if you've turned everybody away so far, Lawrence, like what are you looking for? If you're interviewing potential investor, what does that investor have to bring to the table?
Yeah, I think for us, the goal being growing is we don't want to have to reinvent the wheel. So if we're going to expand into a new market, we don't want to have to spend a year researching how we should enter that market. We want somebody who's been there and done that can help us from day one so that we don't have to go slowly.
Yeah. And what about you, Ritesh? I mean, you're going through this process. What's really important to you? What are you looking for?
So, we've been lucky to see almost all our investors, majority of our investors for 3 years or 2 years horizons already, and these are small periods, of course, but we'd like to continue seeing for more. The two things that have been very, very important for us are as under, and it's always a mutual relationship, right? We expect something from them, they expect something from us. From our standpoint, one, willingness to invest in the long-term mission of the company is very, very important. And hence, when we talk to our investors, we speak to them about the horizons we are planning to invest in this company for, and whether they are aligned to invest in that kind of a horizon, or do they want a shorter-term return. And we generally don't tend to partner the firms which are shorter-term returns because it's not mutual, right? The expectations are mismatched from day one. The second thing that we deeply care about is making sure that whether these people, which is sort of a part of the first point, is whether they're going to be our partners in the good and the bad times. Almost all our partners, in one time when I felt we had a stretch of 4 months of not so good performance because of multiples of reasons, they all partnered us. They backed our vision of evolving to a fully controlled hotel company as well. So we believe that that is a very important part of the investor relation. These are two things that we deeply care about.
And Oliver, on your side, so are you at some point open to taking capital for that next big airline? Is it going to be a low-cost carrier, or is it going to be a traditional network?
Ultra-low-cost carrier, because we still believe that there's a way how to keep the cost even lower based on our experience. Yeah, so of course it will be really hard to really self-fund the airline. So either we use banks or some other or some real investor. Yes, I'm open to actually accept the money, but so far we don't have what to spend the money on. So our current business model is growing. We are able to self-fund the R&D. So really, the airline idea, yeah, it might sound like a joke. It maybe is a little bit of a joke, but at the same time, it makes perfect sense to us. And if we would be actually raising some significant amount of money, this is the only good idea which makes sense to us.
There's not a lot of startups that are focused on air. I mean, really, when you think about it relative to accommodation, it's such a the economics are so much harder, the technology is so much more complicated. I mean, didn't anybody tell you that when you kind of started?
Of course, everybody. That might be one of the reasons why we didn't raise almost any money in the beginning. Yeah, everybody was telling it to us, and we have found some kind of niche which no one else found for some reason before. And it turned out to be much bigger than all of us expected, including me. So yeah, but everybody was telling me that I was insane, and everybody is telling me that I'm insane when I'm talking about the airline. So we'll see.
I have something to add here. You mentioned that it is difficult. I think essentially most companies who are told that it is really difficult will potentially go out and create the most amount of value over time. Because it is difficult, not many people are choosing to do it, right? You're the only guy trying to do it. And think of it from the perspective of all the successful companies you see today. Think about a coffee bar company. I'm sorry, I'm using Starbucks many times. They should pay us for marketing, probably.
You need a coffee, or?
Yeah, maybe still lagged. But I think just clearly it was a tough job. And the one company that was able to do it globally is very valuable. So I feel hard things have long-term value.
What was the initial reaction when you, so your first business was actually more of an Airbnb type of thing in India that didn't quite work out, but then you came up with this new kind of new model. So when you went in and said, hey, I'm gonna fix this whole problem with all of these totally fragmented,
Smaller
unstandardized budget accommodations across India, and what was the reaction?
Oh, that's a very funny story. I'll take 10 seconds and finish the answer. So I initially began with the Airbnb of India. So effectively, I felt if I was half intelligent, I would emulate one of the American companies. I sound very naive saying that, but that's how I used to think. Started that didn't work. We had more investor interest and less customer interest. Always a scary thing to happen, so did not scale that. Post that, a lot of these homeowners had become friends. So they called me to stay with them. For 2 months, every day I would wake up and stay with one of them, which is where I realized predictability was a large problem. So I set out to solve it, but there were 2 important reasons for me to scale this opportunity. The first one is I was a TL fellow, so I was here in the US for some time, and I saw a lot of people creating innovative businesses, and that was actually appreciated. I felt this is great. I can actually build an innovative business as well. So that was one thing. And the second one was even funnier, which is when I was pitching to an investor, I said, I know this is a hotel company and you're not going to invest. I'm happy to keep funding this myself, but I just wanted you to know what we are doing. And that investor turned out to become our first investor. So I feel that being very confident in saying that you're going to achieve the mission, regardless of capital or not, actually leads a lot of capital to chase you. It doesn't happen if you are saying it for the sake of it. You have to really believe that you're going to build it regardless of the capital, and then capital generally chases you, is what we've seen.
So last question quickly for each of you across your various stories. The biggest mistake that you've made, if you could go back and do something completely differently, again, Lawrence?
Not hiring salespeople earlier.
Not
hiring salespeople earlier and doing it myself. I'm the worst cold caller of all time.
Okay.
I already
Oliver?
said that I wouldn't sell 60% of the company for 1.5.
Ritesh?
2 things actually.
No, there's only one. This is the worst. We're out of time. The worst mistake.
I'll combine both of them. Okay. So it is in 2015 when we were growing rapidly. I think we should have measured our growth a little bit more to make sure that we were continuing with our mission of impeccable customer service. The extension of this is I wanted to start early. I think I started very late. So I hoped I could have started a couple of years earlier.
Ladies and gentlemen, Lawrence, Oliver, Ritesh, thank you.
Thank you so much.